on time, especially now that the sun is going to set on us fairly early. And this is much like the other 59 town halls. You can text in your questions, or you can wave your hand outside of your car or truck, and somebody will get the question. If you want to text them, it's on the sheet that you were given, but it's texted to 360-818-4540. I'm here to tell you what I'm about, and most importantly, why I think I would be a good representative for Southwest Washington. And of course, my opponent does not hold these types of events. It's been almost 4 years before she has held an in-person event where she's connecting directly to the people. And I think that is unforgivable. Is anybody with me on that? I thought so. The reason why it's so important, I think, is you get to learn who's in your community when you are out in the community, and that's why we do these town halls. You also hear directly from someone. I decided to run 3.5 years ago. I never thought that I would run for elected office, but I really saw that Southwest Washington had been left behind and really didn't have the leadership that we deserve in our community. A leader that's there in the community talking to voters, but also a leader who's going to be an advocate for the policy issues that matter. Affordable access to health care, having multiple pathways to economic success, investments in our community. And I decided that the best way to do that is to run to Congress. The other thing that I realized is I think I have a unique skill set. Not just my background as an academic, but the fact that my family owned a small business, that I've worked hard all my life. I'm a former union member, and I've done a lot of work in the community on issues of civility and politics. This started about 7 years ago, and I obviously have not fixed that problem, right? We have a real civility deficit in America. But through my work at the university, I've learned that there is so much more that unites us than divides us. And so I'm going to bring that skill set to Congress to advocate for those issues, but also teach people to listen and to understand folks on the other side so that we can get things done for the people of Southwest Washington. Thanks, John, for your question. Stacy says, my parents brought from your store. What are you going to do to protect health care, especially with what's happening with the Supreme Court? Store John's Produce? Yeah. So Stacy, thank you for supporting John's Fresh Produce. I'll tell my dad if I knew a last name. So thank you very much, Stacy. Sorry, I got excited by a connection to my dad's or my old community. So for healthcare, Stacy, the most important thing right now is to protect the Affordable Care Act. I don't have to tell the people here that the Republicans and Jamie Herrera Beutler have been after the Affordable Care Act for 8 years. She herself has voted to get rid of it, she brags, 80 times. Now, it's not a perfect law, but it protects tens of millions of Americans with pre-existing conditions. It protects millions more by giving them access to health insurance for the first time. It protects our kids. They can be on their parents' insurance until they're 26. So the first thing, Stacy, is we have to protect it. And you mentioned the Supreme Court. And I think we all know that this administration and my opponent are supporting the lawsuit in the Supreme Court that will be heard days after the election. And there's a high likelihood they could strike it down as unconstitutional. So Stacey, I'm going to protect the Affordable Care Act, but I'm also going to extend it. I'm going to extend it by offering a public option. So people, if they wish to do so, can access health insurance directly from the government, and it'll drive down costs without competing for the programs that we have. So I'll be an advocate for it. It's my #1 issue, and I've been talking about it for 3.5 years. I'm running against somebody who has said we have to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, and then she says at the same time she wants to protect pre-existing conditions. I've got news for her. Do you know what protects pre-existing conditions? The Affordable Care Act. So just elect me, and I'll protect that for you. It's nice when you hop too, because I can get her drink of water.
We'll get you drinking.
That was a giant yellow Pac-Man that would eat up the small dots. And the way that I talk about the tax bill is that large corporations are Pac-Man. Wealthiest Americans are Pac-Man. And small businesses and working families are the little dots that Pac-Man is chewing up. So the way to support small businesses is to have tax incentives and tax breaks for small businesses, not wealthy corporations. The other thing that I've said is that when you have tax reform, you have to make sure it stimulates the economy. And if you're propping up Amazon, if you're propping up health insurance companies, if you're propping up big pharma, they're doing fine. You need to help the working families and small businesses through smart reform. That will help small businesses, the backbone of our economy. Noah asks, I come from a family of Republicans. Me too. I come from a family of Republicans and have a lot of friends voting for Trump, but are still thinking of voting for Herrera Beutler. What would you say to those voters who are undecided? Well, Noah, the first thing that I would ask them is to think about whether or not they have been served by their current representative for the last decade in office. My opponent has been in office for 10 years. That's a long time. And ask them what she has done to address their needs and whether or not she should actually be reelected. So that's the first thing, is to look at her record and what she's done or hasn't done for the district. The second thing is to look at what I have to offer. So not only is it being in the community with things like this, listening to you more when we're in person, hearing from you, but it's also being present so I can be with you as we struggle for our future. And what I've heard is that you're concerned about healthcare, you're concerned about taxes, you're concerned about small businesses being put under, and you're concerned about this response to COVID under this administration. So what I would ask you to do, I think it was Noah, is take a look at my pandemic recovery plan and my anti-corruption plan. I'm the only person I know running for Congress who put forward two plans which not only show our path forward by investing in healthcare, small businesses, infrastructure, but also gets to the root of the problem and the rot of our democracy, which is the corrosive role of money in politics. My opponent has taken $2 million of corporate PAC money, including almost $600,000 this cycle alone. And so it should come to no surprise, Noah, that she votes for those corporations, giving them tax breaks, which adds to our debt and doesn't prioritize small businesses. So Noah, have them check my record by looking at my plans, but also paying attention to how hard I'm working for everybody's vote. And the last time they saw their member of Congress out there talking, you know what I'm talking about. It's making sure that we look out for one another and we see this as a small inconvenience to protect our public health. But then, Sharon, it's about how we can get through this to get our economy back on track. And the best thing that we can do, aside from managing the pandemic, is to make sure that we have a plan moving forward. So that's, again, why I put together my pandemic recovery plan. But the other reason why I did it is Congress has not been doing its job for 8 months, have they? They have not done its job. And so it's making sure that you can work in a cooperative, bipartisan way within Congress to provide support. Sometimes it's providing that enhanced unemployment compensation. Other times it's providing support for small businesses during things like the PPP program. But the biggest thing that we can do, which is in my plan, is we can have transformational investments in our infrastructure. What I'm talking about is access to broadband internet and the I-5 bridge. So the I-5 bridge, by the way, I've never been in favor of tolls, has not been fixed in my opponent's 10 years in office. She was even on a committee where she could have done something about it, and she left that committee. So she not only didn't step up to the plate, she left the stadium. So that transformational investment on the I-5 bridge will create working jobs, it will help economic development, it will help Southwest Washington. So that's important. But let's talk about broadband internet. So we have someone here from Lacamas Magazine trying to stream live this for his viewers, and he's having connectivity problems. And we're in the city of Vancouver. Imagine how bad it is if you are in Wahkiakum County, where 80% of the people don't have access to high-speed broadband, or Lewis County, where 30% of the people don't have access, and one school district, 90% of the kids don't have access. This is a critical problem, and we need to have the transformational investment in broadband internet now more than ever. It's how our kids are learning, it's how some small businesses can survive, and it allows us to be connected to each other. So that's how we get our economy kick-started. We invest in our communities, we invest in us, it creates good jobs, it'll get us back on track, and you need a leader in Congress, a leader that you haven't had for the last decade. Well, Mary, I'm happy to say Kevin did vote for me, so that's good news. I I like to tell this story. So I grew up in a Republican family, and my husband said he was an independent, dated him for 11 years, hoping that he'd come to my side. He never did, but he's his own person. And when I told him I wanted to run for Congress, last time I said, well, naturally, I assume that I have your support. And his response was, well, what's your platform? And I'm like, honey, I'm your wife. I'm wife of 25 years now. But it was really an important lesson for me because it taught me not to take somebody's vote for granted, and that the way to get support for people who are not in your political party is to tell them what you are for. Tell them what you're going to fight for, and be present in the community as much as possible. So when he saw how hard I was trying to earn people's support, and how I had real plans, the anti-corruption plan, the pandemic recovery plan, he said, okay, I'll vote for you again. Now my daughter, I don't know what's happening with her, but she's only 15, so you'll check back in a couple of years.